Hello and welcome back to the Friendly Lens Jump tutorial series. In the previous video, we discussed what are we going to build, and in this tutorial, we will start building the game. First, go to this GitHub repository and clone it into your local machine. I have added branches according to the tutorials. So if you get stuck at any part of this series, you can download the code up to that part and experiment with it. After cloning or downloading the project boilerplate, open it in your favorite code editor. I am using VS Code. So this is the Next.js based project, but don't worry if you haven't worked with React.js or Next.js before, you will still be able to build this game. Just bear with me until the end of this tutorial. Let's take a look at current folder structure and go through the files line by line. We are using the latest app router in Next.js. If you have worked with Next.js before, you may know that there is a pages folder where we define a file with our path name. However, in the app router, routing is different. They have introduced special files like page, layout, loading, and some new functionalities like server components and built-in SEO support. Right now, this topic is beyond the scope of this tutorial. We will focus on building the game. If you are interested in exploring further, you can go through the documentation of how this app router works. Alright, so all our project files and path will be stored here in the app folder. Additionally, we have a public folder to store any public assets such as images. We have also some configuration files, namely Next.js config file for Next.js configuration of course, tailwind.config for tailwind configuration, and tsconfig for TypeScript. Furthermore, the .gitignore is related to the GitHub, while package.json file defines all the dependencies and scripts. There are some of the main files you can look into, but for now, we only need to deal with the app folder here. To define a route, you need to create a folder with the path name where you want to serve the file. Let me give you an example. If you want to serve a file at localhost :3000/game, you need to create a folder named game, and inside this folder define page.js or page.tsx if you prefer TypeScript. And for the home screen, it's served as just slash. You can use the page.tsx file in the root directory. We are getting the red lines here in the VS Code because it's failing to understand what we are using. Once we install all the dependencies, this issue will be solved. In this file, you can see a line at the top called use client. In Next.js, all the files are by default server components, which means that browser related things like click events, using states are not valid here. Therefore, you have to define the components as client side. For this project, we will be using only client side components throughout the entire app to avoid any errors. Below this text, we have a default export home and a function called goToGame. We are then returning some HTML. Within the HTML, there is a button with an onClick event attached to it. This calls the goToGame function, which redirects the user to the game URL. Now let's take a look at what is contained within the game URL. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to serve the file in Next.js app router, you need to define the folder and the page file within it. We have a folder named game here and its corresponding page file. Let's open this file and see what's inside. We have client declaration on the top, followed by some TypeScript schema and the component itself. The component contains state, the useEffect hook, and the HTML code in the return statement. We import the game from the main file but we won't see what's built there. It's because it's simply a dinosaurs game from the browser. If you are interested in how the game itself works, you can go through those files. Otherwise, for this tutorial, that is beyond the scope. Here in the use effect, we are drawing the canvas and printing the game. This game.start will start the game, and game over callback will set the game over for us, which is the state defined above. Now let's see how this looks. Open the terminal in the VS Code and make sure that you are in the correct directory. Then run the npm install command. But before that, ensure that you have Node.js installed on your machine. Once you have installed all the dependencies, you can start the server with npm run dev command. The game will be running at localhost 3000. Open the browser and enjoy playing. Try playing the game to ensure that it is functioning correctly and without any errors. Now the next step requires a MetaMask wallet and the lens profile. In the next tutorial, we will discuss how to obtain these and connect your game with MetaMask, as well as how to log in with lens. See you in the next tutorial.